Rabbi Nachman You, me, what I can do, every person has to say. All I have to do is take a few lines or a few paragraphs and do the best I can to concentrate. Then I find out the worth that I have in this world. I feel it. I begin to feel it. Torah, right? Torah is vast. There are so many different parts to it. There's Tanakh, right? Should I ask how many people have finished the whole Chumash, studied the entire Chumash with Rashi? Should I ask that, or I better not ask such a question, right? Well, then what about the Novi, Shmuel and Melachim and Yeshaya and whatnot? And what about Ksuvim, right? Eoiv and Mishlei? Did any of us ever study it from beginning to end? Right? I shouldn't ask such questions, right? What about Mishnah? There's 6 parts to Mishnah. It's not that big. Do we ever? If you study 2 chapters of Tanakh, of Nach, right, Nevi'im and Ksuvim a day, 2 chapters, you can finish it in a year.
Wow.
Did you ever think of that? You finish 1 chapter of Novi, 1 chapter of Ksuvim, or 2 chapters of Novi, and go straight through. You can finish the entire Novi in a whole year. How long would it take? Mishnah, if you study a chapter and a half a day, you finish it in a year. A chapter and a half. Right? Do we ever attempt to study the entire Shas? But there are people who do it. Oh, they started earlier. No, there's ways to do it. If you just sit down with it. And maybe sometimes Shas, well, the Shabbostin edition, the art school is very good. There's another one called Masorah, it's in Hebrew, but it's very good. But if you can't do that, then how about Medrash? Right? You ever think of that? Well, there's plenty of others for them, Chofetz Chaim. The idea is the vastness of it. But then let's ask ourselves a question: how come there was a time, when Moshe Rabbeinu received the Torah at Sinai, so he would sit down with the entire Jewish nation. He would sit down with the entire Jewish nation and teach them the entire Torah. Whatever the study for the day, the shiur for the day, he would give it. But then when he got up, walked away, his brother Aaron went and taught everyone who was left, everyone else. When Aaron finished, then his children went and taught them again. Right? And then when they finished, the 70 members of Sanhedrin would teach Klal Yisrael. So that every single Jew knew the entire Torah in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. Every single Jew, man, woman, child, they all were exposed to Torah every day. Then ask yourself, what happened to us in this generation? What happened to us? Right? Are we all steeped in Torah study? What happened to the Jews over the generations? Right? You have the time from Chazal, you have the time, from the Rishonim, the Goinim, the Achronim, all the different times that went through. Look at all the exiles of Klal Yisrael, how they went from one nation to another, how the Talmud was burned and how this was destroyed and how the Jews were kept away and how the Enlightenment came up and offered the Jews a different kind of educational system. Right? So, but then did you ever think why? And there's a very interesting Rashi, which the Arizal expands upon and explains to us, to me, to you, it explains to us where we are today. Right? In Pashas Baha'aloischa, the Pasuk says, a Levi used to serve in the temple. Right? The Levites used to serve in the temple. They began their service when they were 25 years old. Right? They were drafted, so to speak, to serve in the temple from the age of 25. They matured, they were married, and they were able to come. They used to have a weekly rotation system. So for 1 week a year, 1 week twice a year, they would come to the temple to do their service. But they didn't actually perform the service until they were 30 years old. So Rashi on Chumash, it's a Gemara, it's a Medrash, he explains why. They had 5 years learning period with which to study all the things that they would have to do in the temple. It may not take 5 years to study, but they had to study it for 5 years. You know, it's a lahavdil. If you think about the educational systems, you go to college, you have to take a certain amount of courses. You don't need them for life. You'll never use them in life, but you got to take the course, right? Lahavdil, this is what it is. You got to come, you got to take the course. They had to take the courses. Rashi says there that why 5 years? Because if a student was not successful in studying in 5 years, he was never going to get it. Right? So if a 5 year period passes and I didn't catch on to this, I'm trying to study Talmud for 5 years and it just doesn't work, that means I'm not going to get it. Okay? Now that could be very discouraging too, right? 5 years and I can't even get the hang of it. The Arizal explains that if a person studies for 5 years Talmud and he can't get it, he should try learning Kabbalah. It's the Arizal. He should learn Kabbalah. Why? Because in a previous incarnation he already completed his study of Talmud. He knows it. He doesn't need it now to rectify his soul. He says, and the reason says that's why in these generations the study of Kabbalah has become more and more commonplace, because the people have already rectified their certain part. If you take a look at today's Jewish nation, and by the way, you know, I have to say before I go further that it doesn't excuse us from studying Talmud. It doesn't excuse us from studying Mishnah. It's not what the Arizal is intending. What he's trying to tell us is that you have to start with the basics. If you don't know Shulchan Aruch, if you don't know what the laws are, how are you going to be a good Jew? You don't know what it means to keep Shabbos, if you don't know what it means to daven, if you don't know what Pesach and what's called Chometz and what's not, you have to know the law. So that's the basic, the nigla, the revealed part of Torah. He says, but where we should put our efforts, we should put our efforts into the Kabbalah. That's what the Arizal said 450 years ago. Rabbi Nachman teaches us there's a lot more to it than just opening up a book on Kabbalah, right? I mean, anyone could open up a book on Kabbalah, whether he'll understand it or not is one thing. There's a very great danger in studying Kabbalah, because Kabbalah speaks about divine persona. It speaks about certain things that ears and nose and eyes in a spiritual level, and there are no ears and nose and eyes in the spiritual world. This is just something to give you a relationship. This is part of the upper stratosphere, the head part of it. These are the arms, the fingers, these are the legs, lower, whatever. It's made to teach us all the different levels that exist. There is no physical component in heaven, right? So there is an inherent danger in studying Kabbalah. On the other hand, the Kabbalah is like the soul of the revealed Torah, which is the body. We all have a body, that's what we see, that's what we understand and we know. We all have a soul, we don't know what that soul is. That's the Kabbalah, that's the pnimius, the internal part, the soul of Torah is in the Kabbalah. The Baal Shem Tov was about 200 years after the Ari HaKodesh. The Baal Shem Tov is the one who revealed to us what the Arizal meant when he's talking about Kabbalah. He's talking about the inner relationship that a person has with God. And that's what Hasidus does. That's what Rabbi Nachman did to perfection. What he brought out was the you, the person that I am. He brought that out and let you know that you have such an integral connection with Hashem that it's unbreakable. No matter how far you think you are, no matter how little you think you know, no matter how distant you may think you are from Hashem, you should know you're very, very close to Hashem. Hashem is with you at all times. This is the basic teaching of Kabbalah that comes out through Rabbi Nachman's teachings, through the Baal Shem Tov, whatever. But what you'll find is why Rabbi Nachman says you have so much power, you have so much greatness in you, that you could bring out Hashem into the world. Because you are God. You are a godly portion from above. Therefore, you could bring out God in this world. You have the power. Every single person has that power to do that. Every single person. So really, what we're missing is the understanding of how powerful a nation we really are. I mean, I'm sure you've heard the statement, the Jews are supposed to be a light unto the nations, yeah? Everyone heard that. You're supposed to be what kind of light? Fluorescent, right? Incandescent, these nice new fancy lights that they have today, the long-lasting, whatever. What kind of light unto the nations are we? The light is the light that glows from within.